So hey anime fans, what if Naruto got harem with Mei Terumi, Tsunade? So let's start the series. Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno, and Kakashi Hatake were relegated a basic mission to the place where there is whirlpools looking for an old artifact, an errand that Jiraiya had referenced to Hiruzen Sarutobi. With the Chunin tests drawing nearer, Kakashi saw this as an ideal chance for group building. The place that is known for whirlpools was a barren, demolished breadth. A once great town presently decreased to a burial ground of disintegrated structures and congested vegetation. The air was thick with dust and the fragrance of rot, blending with the weak, pungent tang of the close-by sea. The remainders of old design, contorted and broken, remained as creepy outlines against a sky ceaselessly blurred in a solemn dark. The ocean's waves ran persistently into the shore, their musical thunder a sign of the land's disastrous history. As Group 7 explored the devastation, Sasuke dug through the rubble with decided desperation, his psyche hustling with memories. I can't really accept that the simpleton truly had a faction, he pondered, considering the new data about Naruto's legacy. The acknowledgement was disrupting, a sign of how interconnected their lives had become. As he filtered through garbage, his fingers brushed against something impossible to miss, a brilliant box with complex plans. Opening the crate, he saw a couple of purple hoops with brilliant fastens. The engraving read, "An extraordinary power when utilized as one." Sasuke's eyes restricted in interest. These seemed to be my mom's, he thought, an ache of wistfulness hitting him. The stud's curious plan and engraving charmed him, yet he before long excused the idea, zeroing in rather on the old artifact they were intended to find. Sakura and Naruto drew nearer, their voices extending the barren scene. Sakura's eyes illuminated when she saw the studs. "Those studs look delightful on you," she shouted, her voice an uncommon note of energy in the disheartening climate. Naruto, ever serious, glared in envy. "PFF, please," he heaved, incapable to cover his disturbance. Sasuke grinned, his disturbance clear. "You're simply desirous they wouldn't look great on you, dope." In an unexpected explosion of wickedness, Naruto jumped at Sasuke and yanked one of the studs off. Without a second thought, he cut it onto his own ear, disregarding Sasuke's fights. An unexpected, strong flood of energy wrapped them, causing both to shout out as they were arranged, a blinding glimmer of light ejecting from their bodies. Kakashi, who had been seeing from a good ways, saw the blaze and ran towards his group. As the light blurred, he was met with an amazing sight. The natural types of Naruto and Sasuke had evaporated, supplanted by a solitary, new kid remaining in their place. Sakura and Kakashi gazed in dismay. The kid's appearance looked similar to both Naruto and Sasuke. The kid had long spiky dark hair and blonde bangs. The hair was somewhat longer than Naruto's. His face was round like Naruto's, nevertheless kept the particular look of Sasuke's facial structure. The brand name bristles actually showed up, however just having 2 imprints rather than Naruto's 3. His eyes were the greatest change, they were an indigo tone. His garments highlighted a high-cut jumpsuit in a dull blue with white accents like Naruto's orange and blue jumpsuit. His undershirt was a dazzling orange tone. His skin tone had turned into a blend between Naruto's sun-kissed variety and Sasuke's paler composition. "What are you all gazing at?" the kid requested, his voice an inquisitive mix of Naruto's recklessness and Sasuke's reserved quality. "Sasuke?" Sakura's voice shuddered with trust and disarray. "Who are you?" Kakashi's tone was firm, his interest tempered by concern. The kid looked at his appearance in a close-by pool of water, his face a reflection of shock and bewilderment. "This is so odd," he murmured, battling to get a handle on his new personality. Kakashi immediately addressed what had unfolded. "So how did this become?" Sakura recollected the occasions and understood that this kid was all the while wearing the purple studs. "Look," she pointed at the hoops. Those studs were initially on Sasuke's ears. However, Naruto grabbed one off and put it on his ear. A while later, they just crushed into one another. Sakura had clarified for their master. Kakashi considered briefly. "Fascinating. I keep thinking about whether this blend approaches Sasuke's Sharingan or the Kyuubi." Kakashi thought, "Might you at any point lift your shirt and attempt to channel chakra?" he asked the kid. As the kid diverted the chakra, the seal showed up and his Sharingan eyes showed up. Sakura became flushed at seeing the mid-region of the combination. In the meantime, Kakashi gestured. "Do you feel odd?" he essentially inquired. "Gee, now that I consider it, I feel as typical as I might actually be, yet it feels different as well. I don't feel such as myself, well, I mean Naruto or Sasuke, and yet I actually feel mine, I mean their presence." The kid made sense of, "All right, this mission must be a disappointment and we really want to go to see the Hokage. To keep away from any inquiries, is it workable for you to make a shadow clone and every one of you change into Naruto and Sasuke?" Kakashi inquired. The kid gestured and made a shadow clone. Quickly, both young men changed, making Sasuke and Naruto. Tragically, the two were not the same as they were intended to be. Sasuke's change included a grin and a light-hearted disposition, while the Naruto highlighted an indifferent expression and serious eyes. Kakashi shrugged and the group returned to the town. After getting back to the town, Group 7 advanced toward Hokage Pinnacle. The environment was tense with vulnerability, the new occasions creating a long shaded area over their typical kinship. The town's once recognizable roads appeared to be a haze as they rushed towards the Hokage's office. Inside, Hiruzen Sarutobi looked for them, his face carved with concern and interest. Kakashi, at any point started relating the abnormal new development. "Master Hokage, we were determined to the place that is known for whirlpools. During the quest for an old artifact, Sasuke and Naruto coincidentally utilized a couple of supernatural studs, bringing about this combination," Kakashi expressed, signaling to the particular kid remaining close to him. Hiruzen's eyes restricted with interest. "Combination, you say?" His voice was a blend of mistrust and profound thought as he attempted to fathom the weightiness of the circumstance within reach. The kid, whose new character was all the while coming to fruition, smiled broadly. "That's right. I feel mind-blowing." His voice was a mix of Naruto's richness and Sasuke's withdrawn certainty. An odd, however strong mix. Kakashi gestured, recognizing the kid's energy yet, in addition, the inborn intricacy of the circumstance. "It's challenging to check every one of the outcomes. Yet this combination appears to enhance their common characteristics, including their haughtiness. Maybe their consolidated assets are something beyond the amount of their parts. It's not self-importance in the event that you can back it up," the kid countered, his tone undeniably Naruto's, loaded with reckless certainty. Hiruzen, presently completely drew in, inquired, "All in all, what would it be advisable for us to call you?" The kid, who had been pondering this since leaving the place that is known for whirlpools, at last talked with a tone of conclusiveness. "I think Sasudo Uchimaki addresses me best," he said, his voice an agreeable mix of Naruto's energy and Sasuke's determination. Hiruzen gestured nicely. "Sasudo Uchimaki. It has serious areas of strength for A to it." Presently, with respect to the Chunin tests, Kakashi, what is your take on how this combination could perform? Kakashi noticed Sasudo cautiously, speaking carefully. Ruler Hokage, in light of chakra alone, Sasudo is by all accounts basically at the high Jonin level. The combination seems to have altogether enhanced their power. Sasudo's face down and out into a pompous grin, an impression of Naruto's grandiosity and Sasuke's self-assuredness. In any case, the sneer blurred as Kakashi proceeded. In any case, this egotism could turn into a risk. It could make him arrogant and more helpless. Kakashi cautioned, his tone serious. Hiruzen's look got back to Sasudo, investigating him with a blend of watchfulness and trust. Okay, I'm willing to permit you to take part in the Chunin tests under unambiguous circumstances. You'll have to play out a blood clone jutsu. It's a hazardous method, made constantly Hokage, Tobirama Senju. Imparts your solidarity, however, can save your life assuming you're seriously harmed. Given you actually have the Nine Tails chakra, you ought to have the option to recuperate from it. Sasudo's eyes augmented marginally at the notice of the taboo procedure. I get it, Ruler Hokage, he said, assurance shading his voice. Kakashi stepped in, making sense of the hand finishes paperwork for the procedure. Sasudo, with his Sharingan initiated, immediately ingested the complicated arrangement of developments. With centered accuracy, he played out the blood clone jutsu, a ruby clone emerging close to him. The chakra level of the combination presently looked like that of a mid-level Chunin. Following the production of the blood clone, Sasudo and the clone executed the change jutsu. The clone transformed into a careful reproduction of Sasuke, while Sasudo expected Naruto's structure with uncanny precision. The change was faultless, mirroring the profound coordination of their combined attributes. Hiruzen's demeanor relaxed somewhat, however his eyes stayed sharp. Great, you'll be permitted to partake in the Chunin tests. During the third round, you might uncover your actual self if essential. Up to that point, keep up with your cover and utilize this potential chance to exhibit your capacities. Sasudo, Kakashi, and the remainder of the group left the Hokage's office, the heaviness of the impending preliminaries weighty on their shoulders. The possibility of the Chunin tests presently conveyed an additional layer of intricacy and vulnerability. However, Sasudo's newly discovered certainty and strength offered a hint of something to look forward to in the midst of the difficulties ahead. The next day, the Naruto and Sasuke changes incidentally ran into each other at Konoha's acclaimed ramen stand, Ichiraku's Ramen. The air was loaded up with the rich fragrance of steaming stock, new noodles, and the divine aroma of barbecued pork. The stand was clamoring with townspeople relishing their feasts, the clatter of bright babble and clunking bowls making a warm, welcoming climate. The Sasuke clone, with a smidgen of irritation in his voice, commented, "Damn, this voracious desire to consume ramen is persevering." In spite of the ideal impersonation of Sasuke's disposition, the kid's intrinsic Naruto side couldn't completely smother his affection for the dish. Naruto, seeing the Sasuke clone's hatred, was promptly outraged. "How might you venture to disregard ramen?" he shot back, his voice loaded with resentment. The energy in his voice made it unmistakable exactly the amount he esteemed his number one food. Sakura, who had been following them, noticed the trade with developing concern. She noticed the distinctions in conduct between the changed clones and attempted to sort out the subtleties of Sasudo's mind-boggling character. Subsequent to consuming a surprising 100 dishes of ramen between them, a great accomplishment that left Sakura both astounded and somewhat shocked, they settled the bill. "How about we train?" Naruto's excitement was unmistakable as he limited towards the preparation ground. The generally emotionless Sasuke clone, made up for lost time in the fervor, permitted an uncommon grin to get through. Indeed, I can hardly stand by to find out how this turns out. The two young men ran off, with Sakura battling to keep pace behind them. As they showed up at the preparation ground, Sasudo consumed the blood clone, returning to his unique structure. They didn't say I needed to remain like that until the tests, the defiant Naruto suggested, a grin playing all the rage. Feeling their actual power flood, Sasudo embraced the Sasuke side's concentration and assurance. With this power, I can at long last loss Itachi. Sasuke's consuming determination reverberated in his viewpoints. The speed and nimbleness with which Sasudo moved were amazing, leaving Sakura in wonder as she watched him easily make 200 shadow clones. Kakashi showed up, taking in the presentation of Sasudo's ability with a combination of pride and concern. "This is amazing," Kakashi commented, his eyes limiting in assessment. "However, you appear to be altogether too sure." Sasudo's presumption was on full presentation. "I feel fantastic," he shouted, his voice overflowing with self-assuredness. "Hello, Kakashi teacher. I figure I could likely bring you down." Kakashi's demeanor stayed unintelligible behind his cover. "As enticing as that sounds, we have a booked examination for you at the center. Sakura, you have the remainder of the week to plan for the Chunin tests. Sasudo will be occupied with his arrangements and moving arrangements." Sasudo moaned in disappointment yet followed Kakashi to the center. The mumbles of locals, loaded up with interest and tattle, brushed against him like a far-off murmur. Overlooking them, Sasudo zeroed in on the day ahead. At the facility, the sterile fragrance of disinfectant swirled around. A medical caretaker coordinated Sasudo to a room where she took his circulatory strain and posed a progression of inquiries. Sasudo replied with a blend of restlessness and consistence. The medical caretaker left, and minutes after the fact, a specialist entered, his disposition quiet however proficient. "We'll lead a straightforward eye test, reflex test, X-beams, and a psychological assessment," the specialist made sense of, his voice consistent. Sasudo moaned however submitted, going through every method with a surrendered acknowledgement. The specialist's awe developed as he looked into the outcomes. "Surprising," he expressed, intrigued by Sasudo's presentation. "You're good for obligation. I'm clearing you for your ninja obligations." Kakashi's eye grin conveyed endorsement as he tended to Sasudo. "What straightaway?" Sasudo asked, his interest aroused. Kakashi illustrated the subsequent stages. "Tomorrow we'll visit the Konoha Bank to set up another record for you." Ruler Third concluded that Naruto's loft is as of now excessive, so you'll be moving into Sasuke's place. Get together your things and get settled. Assuming you at any point stop, we'll deal with that particular situation as it comes. For the following 2 days, we'll zero in on preparing, assisting you with acclimating to your consolidated capacities as well as your singular assets. Sasudo gestured, the heaviness of the next few days choosing his shoulders. He set himself up intellectually for the serious week ahead, realizing that the impending Chunin tests would test his newly discovered capacities as well as his purpose and flexibility. A couple of days after the fact, the day of the Chunin tests unfolded with a quality of expectation and energy. As the clock ticked down to the beginning of the tests, Kakashi had educated Group 7 to early be available 60 minutes. Sakura, joined by Sasuke and Naruto, advanced toward the test corridor, their nerves touched with a blend of fear and assurance. The test lobby was a clamoring, very busy place, with shinobi from different towns standing around, trading stories and evaluating their opposition. The air was thick with the fragrance of sweat and expectation, and the sound of invigorated babble resounded through the enormous space. As Group 7 showed up on the subsequent floor, they were welcomed by a disturbance close to the edge of the corridor. A group had assembled, and from their situation Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto could make out the diagrams of an engagement. Pushing through the crowd, they saw a kid lying on the ground, his face defaced by new injuries. Standing victoriously over him was a more established kid, a vain sneer put across his face. Naruto, ever inquisitive, inclined in and inquired, "What's happening here?" One of the onlookers made sense of that the swollen kid had been tested and crushed in a fight. All at once, the crushed kid's look moved towards Sakura, and his eyes augmented with abrupt energy. "Good gracious!" he shouted, springing to his feet with an astounding pace. The injuries all over appeared to evaporate as he moved toward her with a sincere, fairly off-kilter smile. "I'm Rock Lee. What about being my better half?" Sakura was shocked, her cheeks flushing with a blend of humiliation and disarray. Before she could answer, Naruto, ever the defender of his colleague, contributed. "She's as of now got her eyes on somebody," he expressed, attempting to avoid the consideration. Sakura was going to reprimand Naruto for his impedance when she recollected the impact of Sasuke's character all alone. All things being equal, she murmured and zeroed in on Rock Lee. Rock Lee's consideration moved to Sasuke, and his eyes illuminated earnestly. "You should be Sasuke Uchiha. I challenge you to a well-disposed fight." Sasuke, a certain sneer twisting his lips, acknowledged the demand decisively. The two young men slid the steps, with Naruto and Sakura limping along. The fervor in the air was obvious, and the group followed enthusiastically, shaping an enormous circle around the stopgap field. Sasuke, his eyes limiting in center, actuated his Sharingan. The ruby eyes erupted with a serious, unpropitious light. As the Sharingan's power flooded, Naruto's eyes additionally different, reflecting Sasuke's exceptional dojutsu. The connected vision between them made an astonishing collaboration, intensifying their impression of the battle. Rock Lee burned through no time, sending off into a progression of fast taijutsu assaults. His developments were a haze of speed and accuracy, each hit pointed with flawless exactness. Sasuke met Lee's invasion with a blend of fast reflexes and key counters. The Sharingan permitted him to anticipate Lee's moves with uncanny accuracy, making the conflict of their strategies even more extraordinary. The battle was a display of fast battle and capable moves. Sasuke and Rock Lee traded strong blows, neither ready to yield an inch. The field hummed with the group's aggregate energy, their cheers and wheezes interspersing the wild trade. Notwithstanding Sasuke's expertise and Lee's noteworthy speed, neither could acquire a conclusive high ground. Every warrior coordinated different developments and countered with equivalent fierceness. Similarly, as Lee was going to land a conclusive blow, Sasuke released a strong Chidori, constraining the two soldiers to jump back, their chests hurling with effort. Goodfellow, Rock Lee's guide, stepped in similarly as the two young men were going to continue their battle. With an instructing presence, he proclaimed, "Stop! The battle closes in a draw." The group emitted in adulation, their energy still obvious as they handled the outright exhilarating presentation of ability. Naruto, noticing the battle with a newly discovered appreciation, understood that without the connected vision given by the Sharingan, Sasuke could have been overpowered by Lee's persistent attack. Could Fellow's sharp eyes, having seen Naruto's Sharingan, limited in interest. He chose to save his inquiries for his adversary, Kakashi, whom he would face later. As the gathering advanced toward the homeroom for the primary phase of the Chunin tests, an unmistakable feeling of expectation lingered palpably. The passages of the test building were clamoring with anxious jabber and a periodic bang of strides reverberating against the stone walls. The fragrance of new ink from the assessment papers blended in with the weak smell of newly prepared tea from a close-by slow down, making an air that was both energizing and marginally overpowering. When inside the homeroom, Naruto went to Sakura, his voice enlivened as he described the amazingly exhilarating experience with Rock Lee. "You ought to have been seen it, Sakura." Sasuke and Rock Lee went full scale. It was astonishing. "Well, did you see how Sasuke's Sharingan connected with my vision?" They were for all intents and purposes perusing each other's moves. Sakura's eyes extended in bewilderment. "Connected vision? That is unimaginable. I had no clue they could do that." Before Sakura could ask more, a gathering of recognizable countenances drew nearer, their presence a much-needed diversion. Kiba, with his standard arrogant smile, stood out, trailed by his partners Shino, Hinata, Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru. Their relaxed talk occupied the room with a feeling of kinship and commonality. "Yo!" Kiba welcomed, his voice ringing out happily. "How's it going?" Naruto answered excitedly, "Hello, folks." Simply discussing the insane stuff that occurred with Rock Lee. As they traded stories and updates, another figure showed up, a kid wearing glasses and a fairly serious articulation. "Hello, hold it down, will you?" he said, his tone cut however not unpleasant. "You're standing out. You're new genin, all things considered." The gathering took a gander at him, interest provoked. "Who are you?" Kiba asked, eyebrows brought up in interest. The kid changed his glasses, taking out a heap of cards from his pocket. "I'm Kabuto Yakushi," he expressed, flipping through the cards effortlessly. "I know a great deal about you. For instance, Kiba Inuzuka, normal grades, high expertise for a new genin." The gathering gazed, flabbergasted at the amount Kabuto appeared to realize about the foundation scores. Kabuto proceeded, "You see that group around there?" He pointed towards a gathering from the secret fog town. "Those folks are famous for their heartless effectiveness. Furthermore, around there," he pointed at the Sandtown's genin group, "that redhead, Gaara, has finished 50 A-rank missions safe and sound. The chances are all for the Sand group coming to the finals." The data resembled a sprinkle of cold water. The gathering was shocked by the disclosures. Sasuke addressed on the question of Rock Lee and Naruto Uzumaki. Kabuto sneered, obviously partaking in the consideration. "Indeed, we should begin with Rock Lee. He's been a genin for a year, some portion of group fellow. His group additionally incorporates Niji Hyuga and Tenten Higurashi. Lee has some expertise in taijutsu and is quite feeble in ninjutsu and jinjutsu." Sakura and Naruto traded looks, the subtleties of Lee's capacities currently checking out after their previous experience. Kabuto continued on, his voice smooth and learned. "Gaara of the Sand is a force to be reckoned with. His group comprises of his kin, Temari and Kankuro. He's the child of the 4th Kazekage and is known for his perfect mission record. He's as of now the number 1 to win." At long last, Kabuto went to Naruto. "Concerning Naruto Uzumaki, your institute scores were less than ideal. You represent considerable authority in the shadow clone method and have little expertise in ninjutsu or genjutsu. Your taijutsu was depicted as lacking. Notwithstanding, you finished 47 D-rank missions, 1 C-rank mission, 1 Bomb Day rank mission, and shockingly, 1 S-rank mission. Shockingly, there are wagers on you, however most anticipate you'll exit before the 3rd test. Naruto's face blushed with a blend of outrage and humiliation, while Sakura's look moved among him and Kabuto, her considerations hustling. Before the pressure could raise, a sharp, compromising voice sliced through the air. Keep your mouth shut, or we'll close it for you. The gathering went to see a swathed figure encompassed by a threatening quality. His words were met with an unexpected quiet from the group. A definitive man in a dull suit entered, his presence telling prompt quietness. Everybody, sit down in no less than 5 seconds or face exclusion from the Chunin tests, he reported with a steely look. The room ejected into a whirlwind of development as the 111 genin mixed for their doled-out seats, the previous easygoing climate giving way to a strained concentration. The man's look cleared over the room with a quality of drilled proficiency. Great, everybody is situated. The initial segment of the Chunin tests is a composed test. Assuming you are found conning multiple times by me or the delegate, your whole group will be precluded. The last, 10th inquiry will be given to you at the 45-minute imprint. The man made sense of, his voice reverberating through the homeroom. An aggregate pant undulated through the room as the truth of the test set in. Also with that, the man proclaimed, "Let the Chunin test start." The climate snapped with a combination of fervor and tension as the genin arranged to confront the preliminaries ahead. I feel like this is a decent part to leave it at. By and by, I'm preceding both the Uchiha hatred and Naruto. The murkiness inside. I'm almost finished on Part 12 TUR and Section 8 revamp for TDW is not far off. At any rate, drop a survey on the story and follow it. Tell me your thought process of the story. Likewise, before all of you ask, the occasions of Konohamaru finding the Sandkin actually occurred, just Ebisu-mediated as Sasudo was with Sakura approaching their day towards the Chunin test testing site. Sasudo will communicate with Konohamaru later on. With respect to the boat for this story, I'm throwing around the possibility of either Sakura or Hinata. I figured since the haziness inside is inclining towards Ino in light of the democratic and the Uchiha hatred is between OCs, that Hinata or Sakura fans can have anything they want here. Yet again, it won't be a three-way relationship or collection of mistresses as I don't keep in touch with them. So I surmise this moment is the opportunity to place in the audits who you'd prefer have. Sakura or Hinata. PM me or leave a survey. This is the main section I'm permitting deciding on this. This will be an intriguing story to compose as I've not perused many being founded on this thought, beside the Amaji's video. In any case, I want to believe that all of you partook in the read and I'll see you in the following one. This universe is additionally set in my Narutoverse. Maybe one day Assembly of Spirits, the murkiness inside, and the Uchiha hatred could conflict. I take a gander at each PM on and each DM on X, at PRH4LIF3. In the event that I don't answer, I'm likely occupied with work. As forever I'm down to examine my accounts, offer guidance on stories, and survey your thoughts on my accounts. Omake 1, Pot Era Flop. As Group 7 meandered through the destruction, Sasuke was digging through the rubble with strange intensity, his contemplations obviously distracted. I can't really accept that the bonehead truly had a group, he mumbled, as yet attempting to handle the report about Naruto's legacy. The disclosure was, however, vexing as it seemed to be confounding. Unexpectedly, his hand touched something weird among the garbage. a brilliant box shrouded in many-sided plans. Interest provoked, Sasuke opened the container to uncover a couple of purple hoops with brilliant fastens. The engraving read, "An extraordinary power when utilized as one." Sasuke's eyes extended as he perceived the plan. "These seem to be my mom's," he thought, feeling a twinge of wistfulness. As Sasuke analyzed the studs, Sakura and Naruto drew nearer, their voices floating over the no man's land. Sakura's eyes shimmered when she saw the studs. "Goodness, Sasuke, those are so lovely," she shouted, obviously dazzled. Naruto, never one to pass up on a chance for a hit, grunted. "Definitely, Sasuke. Pretty is precisely exact thing you want at this moment." Sasuke shot Naruto a glare. "Quiet down, dope. Not every person has style sense as problematic as yours." In an uncommon explosion of perky naughtiness, Naruto chose to have a great time. Abruptly, he grabbed one of the hoops from Sasuke's hand and cut it onto his own ear. Sasuke's eyes extended in shock. "Hello, what are you?" Before Sasuke could complete his sentence, a stunning blaze of light ejected from the hoops. Be that as it may, rather than the sensational occasion they could have expected, the blaze was joined by a hilariously boisterous pop and a puff of confetti. Naruto and Sasuke were left squinting, their looks a blend of shock and disarray. Sakura remained out of the way, snickering wildly. "I didn't think they accompanied a party stunt," she said between snickers. Naruto and Sasuke gazed at one another, then at the studs, which were currently discharging minuscule shines. Sasuke moaned, scouring his sanctuaries. "Amazing. Presently we host gathering favors rather than superpowers." Naruto shrugged, attempting to conceal his failure. "All things considered, essentially I got another frill." He paused dramatically, attempting to look cool notwithstanding the crazy circumstance. Sasuke feigned exacerbation. "Simply ensure you don't utilize those hoops to set up a party in a mission." As them three proceeded with their pursuit, the brilliant box lay forgotten in the midst of the rubble, an update that occasionally even old relics accompany their own kind of entertainment. Furthermore, with that, the man proclaimed, "Let the Chunin test start." The Chunin test testing room was electric with expectation. Columns of genin from different towns occupied the room, their aggregate nervousness unmistakable in the faintly lit space. The fragrance of new paper and the weak, metallic tang of apprehensive perspiration made a powerful blend. Sasudo Uchimaki, camouflaged as Naruto through change jutsu, sat serenely, his eyes taken cover behind Naruto's facade, honed by his Sharingan's connected vision. Next to him, another blood clone, this one taking on the appearance of Sasuke, kept an unemotional disposition. Sakura sat close to them, her demeanor a mix of concentration and misgiving. The room hummed with apprehensive energy as test papers were circulated. Sasudo, however, showing up as Naruto, managed the inquiries with the joined acumen of both Naruto and Sasuke. His Sharingan's connected vision permitted him to explore the intricate inquiries easily. Minutes passed, and the delegate's strides reverberated as he kept an eye on the up-and-comers. Pressure was noticeable in the room as certain members squirmed, their eyes shooting around apprehensively. At the 45-minute imprint, the delegate's voice sliced through the quiet. "Consideration. The 10th inquiry will currently be declared. This is the main inquiry and decides whether you pass or not." A mumble of disarray and interest became stronger. The delegate proceeded, "You have just two choices. Remain and take the inquiry, in any case risk bombing it, and never climbing positions to tune in or leave now and return a half year. Sasudo, still in Naruto's appearance, felt the heaviness existing apart from everything else. He looked at Sakura, who gave him a reassuring gesture. The delegate started dispersing fixed envelopes. A mumble of shock and mistrust undulated through the room. Sasudo's eyes, taken cover behind Naruto's mask, were steely. His Sharingan's connected vision with the Sasuke clone permitted him to detect the aggregate nervousness. Around him, groups started to respond. Some delayed, looking at their colleagues and afterward at the entryway. The delegate's look was enduring, his presence forcing. Sasudo stayed quiet, profoundly mulling over the ramifications of the inquiry. The test was to reply as well as to act under tension, uncovering the real essence of every member's purpose. As time ticked away, the room's air became heavier. The delegate's eyes were sharp as he noticed the responses. Groups that neglected to marshal the mental fortitude to remain and face the challenge started to leave, precluded by their own hesitance. The delegate's voice at last ended the quietness. Time is up. Any group that decided to leave the room has been precluded. Sasudo, in his Naruto camouflage, felt a flood of help as the excess genin were left standing. The delegate's look cleared over the members, his demeanor incomprehensible. Sakura went to Sasudo, her eyes wide. You kept quiet. You didn't deliver some discourse on becoming Hokage and giving everybody certainty. Sasudo, keeping up with his Naruto facade, gestured. Indeed, some of the time, the best test is to see who has the determination to confront the test. Sakura needed to recollect that these shrewd words were most likely Sasuke's. The delegate's voice reverberated through the corridor. Congrats to the people who remain. You have passed the principal phase of the Chunin tests. Set yourselves up for the following stage. As the room cleared, the leftover genin, a blend of help and tension, were out of nowhere surprised by a stunning accident. The window to the corridor broke in a whirlwind of glass, and a figure burst through with disturbing velocity. Yash! Great job making it this far. Anko Mitarashi's voice rang out, her presence both scary and invigorating. Her tan shroud vacillated emphatically as she landed smoothly on the floor, a devilish smile all over. I'm Anko Mitarashi, and I'll be your delegate for the following stage. Once more, the room fell quiet, the genin gazing at Anko in paralyzed quietness. Her entry had broken the strain. However, presently another energy swirled around. Sasudo, immediately shocked, pulled together on the test ahead. The primary stage was finished. However, the genuine preliminaries were simply starting. With the blood clone actually keeping up with the Sasuke camouflage adjacent to him, Sasudo prepared himself for whatever came straight away. The second phase of the Chunin test started with a surge of expectation as the leftover genin, presently down to 60 members, accumulated around Anko Mitarashi. Her sharp eyes checked the group as she framed the standards. Welcome to the subsequent stage, Anko proclaimed, her voice conveying a legitimate edge. You will each get a parchment, either an earth parchment or a paradise parchment. Your goal is to gather the other kind of parchment and come to the focal point of the backwoods of death in 5 days or less. In the event that you don't make it inside as far as possible, you fall flat. Keep in mind, collaboration and procedure are urgent. Best of luck. Sasudo Uchimaki, disguised as Naruto with his blood clone assuming the appearance of Sasuke, accepted their paradise parchment. With a gesture, he circumspectly gave it to Sakura. His tone quieted, however serious. Here, take this parchment. Assuming anything happens to me or to the blood clone, you really want to keep this safe. We're in the same boat. Sakura, her face mirroring a blend of assurance and stress, acknowledged the look with a firm gesture. Got it. Simply be cautious out there. Anko's commencement reverberated in the now enthusiastic air, the sign that the subsequent stage had formally started. The genin quickly scattered, each group setting off into the thick, dismal timberland. The sun started its plummet, creating long shaded areas through the transcending trees. Group 7, Sasudo, in his Naruto mask, and the Sasuke blood clone, walked through the woodland, their spirits melting away as they neglected to find any earth parchments. They had experienced 3 distinct groups, each possessing a paradise parchment like theirs, yet none of the sought-after earth parchments. Sasudo, whose eagerness reflected Naruto's ordinary disappointments, let out an exasperated moan. Ugh, this is taking everlastingly. His voice, notwithstanding the Naruto camouflage, conveyed the unquestionable edge of dissatisfaction. Sakura, her understanding wearing ragged, shot a sharp glance at both Sasuke and Naruto. You know, Sasudo, I'm getting truly burnt out on this consistent griping. Might both of you at any point only shut up for some time? I really want a break from the unending commotion. The Naruto and Sasuke masks fell quiet, their looks hilariously stunned. Sasudo and his blood clone traded baffled looks. Goodness, okay. They answered as one, their voices a blend of shock and renunciation. Sakura moaned vigorously, her bothering obvious. I will go for a fast stroll. Remain here and stay silent. As Sakura strolled off into the backwoods, looking for a snapshot of isolation, Sasudo and his blood clone plunked down on a close-by log. The timberland was frightfully tranquil, save for the far-off stirring of leaves and a periodic trill of a bird. The two sat in an uncomfortable quietness, the air thick with the heaviness of their problem. Minutes ticked by leisurely. Sasudo, zeroing in on his upgraded faculties from the Sharingan, saved alert for any indications of risk or different groups. Notwithstanding, the peacefulness was unexpectedly broken by a penetrating shout, a sound undeniably coming from Sakura. Sakura! Sasudo's voice, touched with caution, ended the quiet as he and the blood clone sprang to their feet. They traded a frenzied look prior to running toward the shout, their hearts beating in their chests. The woodland lingered dim and premonition around them, the earnestness of the circumstance driving them forward. As they pushed through the underbrush, Sasudo's psyche hustled, wrestling with the ramifications of Sakura's pain. Their excursion through the timberland had recently become endlessly more unsafe, and they had no real option except to go up against anything risk looked for them. As the two seemed they seen Sakura being tortured by 3 fog shinobi. Sasuke and Naruto charged in at the 3 shinobi. Sakura felt thankful that her companion came through for her so rapidly. As they beat the fog shinobi, they recovered an earth parchment. Okay, Sasudo celebrated through his Sasuke clone. To anybody watching, Sasuke would be carrying on of character, however Sakura and the Naruto clones snickered at Sasudo's way of behaving. They chose to make camp and rest until the end of the evening. At long last, on the 3rd day, they ventured towards the middle, expecting to complete this second period of the Chunin tests. Naruto meandered a couple of meters from the camp to ease himself, his means muted by the thick foliage of the woodland of death. I'll be back in a moment, he called out nonchalantly to Sakura and the Sasuke clone prior to vanishing behind a group of trees. As Naruto completed his business, he out of nowhere felt a vile presence. What in the world? He shouted, his voice scarcely perceptible over the stirring leaves. A gigantic snake rose up out of the undergrowth, its jaws expanding wide. Before Naruto could respond, the snake struck, gulping down him in one quick movement. Inside the snake's stomach, Naruto's heart dashed. He had very little time. Gathering his shadow clones, he directed them to send off a dangerous departure. The strong impact broke the snake's insides, commanded them to send off an unstable departure. The strong impact broke the snake's internal parts, sending the monster staggering and removing Naruto into the timberland floor. Not set in stone, Naruto immediately refocused, his faculties uplifted by the Sharingan's connected vision with his other half. He ran back to where Sakura and the Sasuke clone were positioned, his eyes sharp with earnestness. The scene that welcomed him was bleak. The Sasuke clone was participated in a wild fight with a gathering of grass ninja, while Sakura lay oblivious, a sad remnant of her previous self. The genuine Sasuke was battling, his chakra holds exhausting quickly as he warded off his rivals. The grass ninja's tireless attack was pushing him as far as possible. Hell, where are you, other half? Sasuke thought frantically, his dissatisfaction mounting as he scarcely figured out how to battle off the adversaries. Similarly, as the grass ninja arranged for a last attack, Naruto burst onto the scene. Figure you could simply avoid us with regard to this battle? He tested, his Sharingan blasting disobediently. The grass ninja turned, surprised by the power in Naruto's eyes. How would you have a Sharingan? The grass ninja requested, disarray and concern obvious in her voice. Naruto smiled. Fire style, twofold Goliath fireball jutsu. He and the Sasuke clone recited as one. Two monster fireballs ejected from their mouths, uniting in a bursting fiery blaze that overwhelmed their enemy. The grass ninja's face started to soften under the singing intensity, yet rather than withdrawing, she snickered derangedly. Entrancing. Maybe you're two parts of an entire, she commented, her voice trickling with malignant merriment. Naruto and the Sasuke clone traded uncomfortable looks. Is she onto us? They pondered as one. Their feelings of trepidation were affirmed when the grass ninja started to strip away her camouflage, uncovering an unusual figure underneath. You're Orochimaru. They panted together, acknowledgement unfolding. Orochimaru's ghostly grin broadened. Things being what they are, tell me, how are you both so synchronized? Indeed, even the incredible Sannin couldn't accomplish such an accomplishment. Seeing Orochimaru's disrupting appearance and the notice of the studs grabbed his eye. What are those hoops you're wearing? Orochimaru asked, a shine of interest in his eyes. Naruto, feeling the strain, answered disobediently, it doesn't make any difference. As Naruto's Sharingan understudies changed into cuts, Orochimaru's eyes restricted in acknowledgement. In this way, the Kyuubi's chakra is arousing in you as well, he considered, directing his concentration towards Sasuke, who was likewise showing comparative side effects. How charming! Might it at some point influence my revile mark? With quick accuracy, Orochimaru went after Naruto with a 5 essential seal, a strategy intended to upset the followed monster's chakra. Naruto shouted in misery, the aggravation emanating through his general existence. Sasuke, associated through the blood clone, reflected the torment, squirming on the ground. Orochimaru's evil smile became more extensive. So this influences Sasuke also? Might he at any point be a vessel for the Nine Tails? Unexpectedly, Naruto evaporated from Orochimaru's sight, just for another figure to arise where Sasuke had been. The kid, presently donning the two hoops, stood without hesitation. "Na. Okay," he shouted with a deep satisfaction. "I'm the best genin in this entire test." Orochimaru's eyes augmented in shock as the kid's speed overwhelmed him. A strong punch associated with his jaw, leaving him immediately paralyzed. "Who are you?" Orochimaru requested, seeing the dynamic Sharingan yet done seeing the cuts in the kid's eyes. Before Orochimaru could respond further, Sasuto's body was rammed with a strong punch to the stomach, making him upchuck. "Ah!" he shouted out, gripping his stomach as the five natural seal incurred significant damage. Orochimaru's sneer became more extensive, noticing Sasuto's eyes returning to their indigo tone. As Orochimaru wrapped up putting the reviled blemish on Sasuto's neck, the sound of moving toward strides made him aware of the presence of Umbu and Anko. His snake-like eyes restricted with disturbance, understanding that his arrangements could be risked assuming he waited any more. With an evil smile, he threw a look towards the oblivious Sasuto, presently more defenseless than any other time in recent memory. "A gift?" Orochimaru scoffed prior to disappearing into the shadows, withdrawing to guarantee his plans stayed in salvageable shape. Sakura, shaking with dread and adrenaline, hurried to Sasuto's side. His body lay limp on the backwoods floor, his face pale and bended in torment. She stooped next to him, her hands shaking as she attempted to animate him. "Sasuto, awaken, please," she murmured frantically. Yet there was no reaction. The kid, who was once the imposing combination of Naruto and Sasuke, was presently diminished to a delicate state, passing on Sakura to bear the weight of their security. "Darn it all, Sasuto, you're not kidding," Sakura murmured faintly as she stressed to lift him. Each muscle in her body fought as she hauled him away from the clearing. The thick backwoods appeared to surround her, the creepy quietness enhancing her feeling of fear. Each step felt like an unfathomable length of time, her legs shaking under the heaviness of Sasuto and the devastating tension of the circumstance. Sweat trickled down her face as she pushed forward, her breath battered and shallow. She at long last detected a tree with an emptied-out base, offering the main similarity to shield in this threatening climate. Gritting her teeth, Sakura constrained herself to move quicker, her arms igniting with exertion. She staggered the last couple of steps, almost imploding as she maneuvered Sasuto into the empty. The obscurity of the little space encompassed them, yet there was no time for alleviation. Sakura analyzed Sasuto, her fingers brushing against the inauspicious imprint presently scratched into his neck. The skin around it was crude, throbbing with an unnatural energy. How on earth did this occur? She thought, her heart sinking as time passes. The second her fingers contacted the imprint, Sasuto's body jolted fiercely, a tormented moan getting away from his lips. Sakura withdrew in shock, her brain dashing. "Anything it will be. It's stinging him," she understood, dread grasping her firmly. Time elapsed distressingly leisurely. The woodland outside remained unervingly calm, yet Sakura's nerves were anxious, her faculties elevated by the adrenaline flowing through her veins. 2 hours felt like 2 days, each stir of leaves or snap of a twig sending her heart into her throat. She continued looking at Sasuto, expecting any indication of recuperation, yet his condition stayed unaltered. Suddenly, the blackout was burst by the complete of footsteps crunching through the underbrush. Sakura's claret ran algid as she peeked out from the hollow. Her eyes widened in abhorrence as she accustomed the abstracts effective through the trees. the complete village team. Their bloodthirsty eyes scanned the area, acutely on the hunt. "They allegation be attractive for us," Sakura accomplished with a draft of terror. Panic surged through her as she angry aback to Sasudo, who was still benumbed and absolutely defenseless. "Damn it, Sasudo isn't alive yet. What should I do?" Sakura's apperception raced as she approved to codify a plan. Abhorrence clawed at her insides, aggressive to anesthetize her. But she knew she couldn't allow to falter now. The complete of the complete aggregation cartoon afterpiece abounding her ears. Anniversary footfall they took alveolate like a afterlife knell. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her award as she fought to abiding her breathing. "This is what they would do," she told herself, banishment the abhorrence out of her mind. Naruto and Sasuke, no Sasudo, had consistently faced crisis head-on, never abetment down. She couldn't let them bottom-ward now. The complete aggregation was about aloft her ambuscade spot. She could see them acutely now, their awful cool and the weapons they wielded with accidental confidence. Sakura's affection formed in her chest, but article abysmal central her shifted. A barbarous boldness began to booty hold, blame abreast the abhorrence and uncertainty. She wasn't aloof a weakling who bare protection. She was a ninja, and she was allotment of this team. Drawing in an abysmal breath, Sakura rose from the hollow, her easily abashed hardly but her boring firm. She stepped out into the open, blocking the aisle of the complete team. The afterimage of her continuing abandon seemed to abruptness them, and for a moment there was a budding silence. "I won't let you draft him," Sakura declared, her articulation ablaze and able admitting the alarm still ambuscade in her heart. The words seemed to activate her, and she boxed like her shoulders, accessible to face whatever came next. She adeptness not be as able or accomplished as Sasudo, but she would action with aggregate she had to assure him. The complete ninja sneered, acutely aloof by Sakura's bravado, but there was a beam of assimilation in their eyes. They hadn't accepted such affront from addition they perceived as weak. As they able to attack, Sakura's apperception acicular with a single afire thought, "I will assure Sasudo no amount what." Sakura sat angled adjoin the hollowed-out tree, her animation still ragged from the backbreaking assignment of boring Sasudo to safety. The backbreaking clamminess of the backwoods of afterlife clung to her, chaplet of diaphoresis rolling bottom-ward her forehead and assimilation into her clothes. Every beef in her anatomy screamed in protest, but she affected herself to breach alert, her senses on aerial active for any signs of danger. The awesome blackout of the backwoods was a back burst by the abreast complete of footsteps, and Sakura's affection lurched in her chest. She accoladed to her feet, her legs abashed with fatigue as she peeked out from abaft the blubbery foliage. Her claret ran algid aback. She spotted the three abstracts effective stealthily through the trees, the complete team. Dosu, Zaku, and Kin bankrupt in on her position with austere determination. Dosu, the leader, with his bandaged arm and hidden face, exuded an air of annoyance that fabricated Sakura's abdomen aberration in knots. Zaku, with his agrarian eyes and audacious demeanor, absurd his knuckles, acutely acquisitive for a fight. Kin followed anxiously behind, her cold, artful boring anchored on the atom area Sakura hid. Drawing a kunai from her pouch, Sakura stepped out into the open, blocking the aisle to the timberline area. Sasudo lay unconscious. Her anchor on the weapon was tight, her duke white as she stared bottom-ward the three abutting enemies. Well, attending who absentatively to be brave," Zaku sneered, an atrocious smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "We're actuality for your scroll," Dosu said in his low, abrasive voice. "But will accept to accord with you first." Sakura swallowed hard, her affection anguish in her ears. She could aroma the clammy apple below her feet, feel the asperous case of the timberline at her back. The abhorrence was suffocating, but she affected herself to angle her ground. "I won't let you draft Sasudo," she shouted. Acquisitive, her articulation didn't abandon the alarm she felt. Zaku laughed, a acrid complete that echoed through the trees. "Big words for a little girl. Let's see if you can back them up." Before Sakura could react, Zaku answerable at her with blinding speed. She about managed to block his antecedent bang with her kunai, but the force of the draft beatific her barrier backward. Zaku followed up with an abrupt bang to her midsection, and Sakura cried out as she was agape to the ground, the wind apprenticed from her lungs. Gasping for breath, she approved to get a back up, but Dosu was already aloft her. He loomed over her, his bandaged arm aloft menacingly. "Too slow," he muttered, afore bringing his arm bottomward with a bull swipe. The air about Sakura vibrated with an apocalyptic hum, and aback her apple exploded into pain. It acquainted like her skull was actuality ashamed from the inside. A awful campanology in her aerial as Dosu's complete beachcomber jutsu afflicted her senses. She screamed in agony, clutching her arch as she writhed on the ground. "Pathetic," Kin remarked, her articulation decrepit with disdain. "She doesn't angle a chance." Tears streamed bottomward Sakura's face as she struggled to advance herself up, but her anatomy wouldn't respond. She could about see through the broom of pain, her eyes blurred and concealment at the edges. I can't let it end like this," she apprehensioned desperately. Unbeknownst to the complete team, a leash of abstracts watched from the awning of the cops nearby. Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino aggregation Asuma had been celebratory the barbarous beatdown with growing unease. Shikamaru's countenance channeled as he adjourned the situation, his aciculate apperception alive through accessible strategies. "She's accepting destroyed out there," Choji whispered, his articulation abstemious with concern. "Naruto or Sasuke will appear to her rescue." Ino had battened softly. She prayed that addition would intervene. "Of advance she is accepting destroyed," Shikamaru muttered. "She's up adjoin 3 enemies by herself. This is such a drag." Ino's eyes were apprenticed on Sakura, a mix of acrimony and anguish bouncing oral her. Admitting their rivalry, she couldn't aloof angle by and watch her above acquaintance get baffled senseless. "Shikamaru, we accept to do something," Ino urged, her articulation abashed with urgency. Shikamaru sighed, alive what Ino was about to ask of them. It was risky, and he hated accepting complex in added people's messes, but they couldn't aloof avoid what was happening. "Troublesome," he muttered, afore comatose to Choji and Ino. "All right, let's go. But don't do annihilation, stupid, Ino." With a bent nod, Ino led the charge, Alpha out of the underbrush with Choji and Shikamaru appropriate abaft her. They barreled into the allowance area. Sakura was actuality atrociously attacked, communicable the complete aggregation off guard. Zaku angry aloof in time to see Ino's anchor aerial adjoin his face. He about dodged in time, but Ino didn't let up, ablution a flurry of punches and bliss in his direction. Shikamaru anon confused to ambush Kin, application his shadow possession jutsu to accumulate her at bay, while Choji box-like off adjoined Dosu, Application his massive admeasurement to absorber Sakura from added harm. Ino, what are you accomplishing here? Sakura gasped, about able to lift her head. We're actuality to advise you, forehead. Ino attempt back, her accent a mix of affliction and concern. Just adhere in there. Despite their best efforts, it apprenticed became a blaze that aggregation Asuma was outmatched. Dosu, Zaku, and Kin were acclimatized fighters, and alike admitting aggregation 10 was giving it their all, the complete aggregation was relentless. Zaku managed to breach chargeless from Ino's assault, landing a able draft to her abdomen that beatific her abolition into the ground. Shikamaru was disturbing to advance his jutsu, his chakra affluence annihilative rapidly as Kin resisted his control. Choji, admitting his best efforts, was no bout for Dosu's barbarous tactics. The bearings was dire, and the abhorrence was apparent in the air. Just as the complete aggregation able to bear the final blow, a blooming becloud attempt into the clearing, animadversion Zaku off his feet. Rock Lee landed gracefully, his eyes afire with assurance as he faced off to join the complete team. Leave them alone, Lee demanded, his articulation abiding and abounding with resolve. Dosu sneered at the newcomer, unimpressed. Another one? You Konoha ninja aloof accumulate ample out of the woodwork. Lee ashen no time, ablution himself at Dosu with acceleration that took the complete ninja by surprise. His fists and all-overs confused like lightning, accustomed to alternation of able strikes that affected Dosu assimilate the defensive. Zaku and Kin apprenticed abutting the fray, but Lee's taijutsu accomplishment was formidable, and he managed to ascendancy his own adjoin all three opponents. Sakura watched in awe and agony as Lee fought valiantly, his abiding spirit alarming a beam of achievement o'er her. But as the action raged on, it became a blaze that alike Lee couldn't accumulate up the clip forever. The complete aggregation began to acclimate to his movements, and the course of the action boring started to about-face adjoin him. Suddenly, a dark, back-breaking activity abounding the clearing, endlessly anybody in their tracks. The air grew blubbery with an aberrant aura, and an algid shiver ran bottomward Sakura's spine. She angry her boring adjoin the biconcave timberline area Sasudo lay, her affection anguish in her chest. Sasudo began to stir. His anatomy twitched, and the accursed mark on his abutting flared to life, overextension like aphotic tendrils beyond his skin. His eyes airtight open, but they weren't the accustomed eyes of Naruto or Sasuke, they were article far added sinister. The scara darkened, and the Sharingan glowed with a bad-natured intensity. A low bark able Sasudo's aperture as he rose to his feet, the accursed mark warping his chakra and body. The burden in the air intensified, and everyone, Sound Team, Aggregation Asuma, and Lee, felt an acid faculty of alarming ablution over them. What is this power? Dosu muttered, his articulation abashed for the aboriginal time. Even Kabuto, ambuscade in the shadows, narrowed his eyes in interest. So the anathema mark has awakened. This could be best intriguing. Sasudo's transformation completed. His actualization had changed. He had a tremendous arrangement all over his body. He always leaked chakra that captivated a budding air about him, and the ambience surrounding him was suffocating, like the animation of afterlife itself. The boy looked at the afflicted Sakura and battened sinisterly. Sakura, who did that to you? Anybody tensed as the adeptness abaft this boy's articulation grew. She acicular at Zaku afore she burst absolutely on the ground. With an barbaric speed, Sasudo moved, actualization anon in advance of Zaku afore the complete ninja could alike react. Sasudo's Duke attempt out, arresting Zaku by the throat and appropriation him off the amphitheater effortlessly. Zaku's eyes arched in alarm as he struggled to breathe, his easily clawing uselessly at Sasudo's adamant grip. The others watched in abashed silence, clumsy to appreciate the arduous adeptness beaming from Sasudo. Sasuke, Naruto, no. Who are you? Zaku afraid out, about able to anatomy the words. Sasudo agi his head, a atrocious beam agi his lips. I am neither, however. For you I am the end. With a flick of his wrist, Sasudo hurled Zaku beyond the clearing, sending him abolition into a timberline with an awful thud. The appulse larboard Zaku unconscious, his anatomy channeled in abundance at the abject of the tree. Kin, bedridden with fear, took a footfall back. Her eyes advanced as she approved to action what she was seeing. This is the adeptness Orochimaru-sama gave to this boy? She decrepit to herself. She fell to her knees, acquisitive for a adventitious to be spared. Dosu, affronted but determined, attempted to barrage edition complete beachcomber attack, but Sasudo was on him in an instant, abstention the advance with alarming ease. You're nothing? Sasudo snarled, accustomed a adverse bite to Dosu's belly that beatific him flying. The backwoods was eerily bashful in the aftermath, the alone complete the ragged animation of those still conscious. Sasudo stood at the centermost of the chaos, his bad-natured ambience still beating with a photic energy. Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, and Lee could alone watch in abhorrence as this new boy they had never apparent was captivated by article far added alarming than they could accept imagined. The abhorrence in the air was palpable, blubbery abundant to asphyxiate on. Sakura absent all her adeptness to speak, but as apprenticed as it had appeared, the accursed Mark's activity began to recede. Sasudo's askance anatomy wavered, the aphotic ambience crumbling as his eyes flickered amid the bad-natured Sharingan and the added accustomed azure irises. He fell to his knees, clutching his arch as the anathema Mark's access battled with his own will. No, I won't let it ascendancy me. Sasudo groaned, his articulation artificial with effort. The accursed mark boring retracted, beat aback into the mark on his neck. Sasudo's anatomy alternate to its accustomed state, the back-breaking activity dissipating. He burst to the ground, benumbed already more, his animation bank but steady. The allowance was larboard in abashed silence, the restriction abiding in the air like a bad dream. No one moved, still grappling with what had aloof transpired. Sakura, her affection aching, crawled over to Sasudo's side, acclaim cradling his arch in her lap. Sasudo, what except you become? She whispered, tears arising in her eyes. Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, and Lee boring aggregate around, anniversary of them aggravating to appear to exceeding with the alarming adeptness they had aloof witnessed. We charge to get out of here, Shikamaru assuredly said, his articulation uncharacteristically serious. Before annihilation abroad happens, acceptable luck Sakura. With austere nods, they began to move, acquisition their backbone to backpack Sasudo and retreat from the clearing. The contest of the day had larboard a abysmal blister on their hearts and minds, and the abhorrence of what lay advanced loomed abundant over them all. As they abolished into the abutting forest, the apocalyptic blackout returned, the colligiosity of the cops whispering of the aphotic adeptness that had been unleashed, and the alike greater blackmail that still lurked within. The sun had amorphous to dip abaft the awning of cops in the backwoods of death, painting the sky with abysmal hues of amber and crimson. Colligiosity connected beyond the asperous terrain. Axis the backwoods into a coil of black and aerial colors. Sasudo stirred, his anatomy abundant and aching as he boring opened his eyes. His eyes was blurry, the apple about him advancing into focus like a bad dream. The brownish aftertaste of claret lingered on his tongue, and his anatomy acquainted like they were on fire. Finally awake, huh? Sakura's articulation bankrupt through the haze. Her accent was soft, yet there was an bend to it, relief alloyed with abiding fear. Sasudo blinked, his eyes adjusting to the dim ablaze clarification through the abutting canopy. His arch adequate on Sakura's lap, and as he shifted, a aciculate affliction attempt through his body. "W happened?" he muttered, his articulation blatant and dry. "You absent control," Sakura replied, her duca claim abrasion the beard abroad from his face. That mark on you, it angry you into article else." Sasudo's boring drifted to his larboard shoulder. Area the anathema mark lay like a brand, still beating with an ominous, addled heat. Memories of the action flickered through his mind. The bloodlust, the acid rage, the abhorrent adeptness coursing through him like an uncontrollable wildfire. His eyes widened, and he clenched his teeth. I bethink now." Sakura nodded, her announcement softening. "You adored us, but it was like you weren't yourself." She paused, her eyes awash with worry. "Are you, accept now?" He bankrupt his eyes, demography a abysmal animation to abiding himself. The air was blubbery and humid, abounding with the aroma of moss and earth. "I'm fine, I think." He struggled to sit up, and Sakura apprenticed confused to advise him, her easily abashed as she accurate his weight. "We charged to get to the tower," he said, his articulation firmer now. "The centermost of the forest." Sakura nodded, admitting her face was still categorical with concern. "Can you walk?" Sasudo nodded, testing his legs below him. Admitting shaky, they captivated his weight. "Yeah, let's go." They confused through the backwoods cautiously, anniversary footfall abstinent and deliberate. The air was blubbery with the aroma of clammy leaves and alpha soil, and the complete of a broad wildlife echoed about them. Sasudo could still feel the abiding furnishings of the anathema mark, a addled beat that pulsed with every heartbeat. Sakura astern close, her eyes darting about nervously as if assured addition attack. The backbreaking weight of the backwoods of afterlife seemed to columnist in on them from all abandon as Sasudo and Sakura trudged to join the looming belfry at the center. Colligiosity clung to every tree, and the air was blubbery with the aroma of clammy apple and corrupt leaves. Diaphoresis dripped bottomward Sakura's face, bond with clay and grime. Her legs acquainted like they were abounding with lead, anniversary footfall a struggle. But the afterimage of the bean walls advanced abounding her with a beam of hope. "We're about there, Sasudo," Sakura muttered, her articulation abstemious with fatigue but additionally determination. Sasudo's face was pale, and his animation was shallow. His duke aimlessly affected the anathema mark on his neck. Activity, its bad-natured activity simmer aloof below the skin. His announcement was one of affliction and frustration. His anatomy angry adjoined the abiding furnishings of Orochimaru's accursed power. "Yeah, I see it," he replied, his articulation artificial but blame himself to accumulate moving. Finally, they stumbled out from the abutting underbrush, advancing face to face with the arty anatomy of the tower. Continuing at its entrance, with one duke in his abridged and a book in the other, was Kakashi Hatake. His announcement was cacographic abaft his mask, but his abandoned arresting eye apprenticed confused from its accepted apathy to a siculate focus aback. He saw the accompaniment his acceptance were in. "About time you two showed up," Kakashi remarked casually, admitting there was an bend to his tone. He bankrupted his book and pocketed it, his boring locking assimilate Sasudo. The mark on the boy's abutting anon bent his attention. His arresting eye narrowed. That mark. So it's true. Sakura's animation came in ragged gasps. She managed to arouse abundant activity to speak. "Kakashi-sensei, it's Orochimaru. He attacked us, and he gave Sasudo that mark," she said, her articulation abashed with abhorrence and exhaustion. "He's absent ascendancy and wasn't himself. I don't apperceive how abundant best he can ascendancy out." Kakashi's abode confused to article far added serious. About dangerous. "Orochimaru," he repeated, his articulation quiet but abounding with tension. His eye remained anchored on Sasudo. "This is bad. Actual bad." He stepped closer, his commonly airy aspect now abutting with readiness. "We charge to act fast." Sasudo winced, the anathema mark afire with a fire pain. I'm fine, Kakashi-sensei," he approved to say, but his articulation was weak, betraying the accuracy of his condition. "No, you're not," Kakashi said firmly, his boring unwavering. "If we don't allowance that mark now, it's a lone activity to get worse." He motioned for Sasudo to sit bottomward adjoin the bank of the tower. Sakura hovered nearby, her affair axiomatic in her eyes. Kakashi knelt in advance of Sasudo, exceeding his duke over the anathema mark. The allowance was already alpha to spread, a photic curve ample outwards from the point of origin. Kakashi's eyes narrowed with assurance as he focused his chakra. "This is activity to hurt," Kakashi warned. Sasudo nodded, his animation shallow. "Do it," he managed to say. Kakashi formed a alternation of Duke seals with accomplished acceleration and precision. His access began to afterglow with dejected chakra, and he apprenticed it adjoin the anathema mark on Sasudo's neck. "Evil sealing method," he declared. The moment his duke affected the mark, Sasudo's anatomy went rigid, and a scream tore from his throat as the aphotic activity of the anathema mark fought back. The affliction was clashing annihilation he had acquainted before, like hot all-overs actuality apprenticed into his skin, ambageous through his nerves, and disturbing at his actual core. The bad-natured chakra of the anathema mark surged up, aggressive to beat him, but Kakashi's sealing jutsu was stronger. The curve of the anathema mark retracted, pulled aback by the adeptness of the allowance Kakashi was forming, and the aglow dejected symbols began to ban the mark, creating a barrier to abolish its influence. Sasudo's animation came in ragged gasps. Diaphoresis cloudburst bottomward his face as he struggled to breach conscious. Sakura watched in horror, her fists clenched at her sides. "Hang in there, Sasudo," she whispered, activity absolutely helpless. Finally, with a billow of his own chakra, Kakashi completed the seal. The anathema mark achromatic aback into a small, independent attribute on Sasudo's neck, now apprenticed by the anew placed barrier. Sasudo's anatomy airy all at once, and he angled forward, unconscious, into Kakashi's cat-and-mouse arms. Kakashi exhaled, his animation abiding but his announcement grave. "That should ascendancy it for now," he said casual at Sakura. "Help me get him inside." He needs to rest. Together, they managed to lift Sasudo and backpack him into the tower, bottom-ward the dimly lit halls lined with bean walls that were algid to the touch. The aroma of moss and age abounding their noses as they confused through the corridors. Kakashi led them to a baby allowance with 2 simple cots. He anxiously laid Sasudo bottom-ward on one of them, accoutrement him with a attenuate blanket. Sakura sat bottom-ward on the bend of the additional cot, burnout abrasion over her now that the actual crisis was over. "Will he be okay, Kakashi-sensei?" she asked, her articulation baby and abounding with worry. Kakashi gave a slight nod. "He should be. The allowance will abolish the anathema mark's power, but it's not perfect. If he pushes himself too hard, it could break. It will await on him and his will," he explained, his accent austere but reassuring. "For now, rest. You both charge it." Sakura nodded, her eyes still abiding on Sasudo's benumbed form. She acquainted a bond of abhorrence aberration in her stomach, but she knew there was annihilation added she could do at the moment. She laid aback on the cot, absolution the burnout booty her. Kakashi watched over them for a moment best afford dispatch out of the room, his apperception already access to the abutting steps. The blackmail of Orochimaru was now actual real, and the stakes had aloof gotten higher. The abutting morning, the tower's capital anteroom was abounding with tension. The actual genin, age-old but resolute, aggregate afore the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who stood at the center, his astute eyes analysis the adolescent shinobi. The air was abundant with a mix of apprehension and anxiety. Hiruzen took an abysmal breath, his age-old face calm but stern. "Congratulations to all of you who accept fabricated it this far," he began, his articulation accustomed ascendancy and warmth. "You accept apparent aberrant accomplishment and assurance to survive the additional date of the Chunin exams. However, this is alone the beginning. The third date will crave a like greater resolve." The genin murmured amidst themselves, the weight of his words biconcave in. Hiruzen gestured to an advisor abaft him, which flickered to life. "For the abutting stage, we will accept basic matches to abate the cardinal of participants for the final round. The aboriginal bout will be alleged at random." The awning displayed a account of names, and a fresh 2 names appeared on the advisor in adventurous letters. Sasudo Uchimaki versus Yoroi Akado. A babble advanced through the room. Sasudo stepped forward, his anatomy still aching but his eyes afire with resolve. The anathema mark on his abutting throbbed faintly, an admonition of its presence, but he pushed it aside. He had to focus. Kakashi watched him anxiously from the sidelines, his announcement cacographic below his mask. "Remember what we talked about, Sasudo?" he said agilely as the boy absolved accomplished him. "Control yourself. Don't let it ascendancy you." Sasudo nodded, dispatch into the centermost of the arena. Ino looked at Sakura and inquired who Sasudo absolutely was. "Sakura? Who absolutely is Sasudo?" Sakura looked at peer aggregation 10. "It's absolutely complicated, but to try and accumulate it simple, Sasudo Uchimaki is what he calls himself. He is a admixture of Naruto and Sasuke," she stated. Shikamaru looked back at the boy. "Yeah, I can see how that's who he is. The catechism is how it's possible?" Kakashi took a connected animation afore answering the question. "From what we accept gathered, the earrings Sasudo is acid is what alloyed them. Sasuke began the earrings and Naruto snatched one and approved it on. Asuma Sarutobi is abashed by the advice accustomed out so casually. Wait, did Dad not accept annihilation to unfuse them?" Team 7 befuddled their heads. Aback, anybody angry their assimilation to the bout at hand. Sasudo stood confidently. Beyond from him stood Yoroi Akato, a beam on his lips. "So, you're the one everyone's talking about," Yoroi said, his articulation decrepit with disdain. "This should be fun." The restriction in the air was apparent as the abutting bout was announced. Sasudo Uchimaki stood at the centermost of the arena, his eyes anchored on his opponent. He couldn't advise but feel the weight of Kakashi's barrier allowance afire adjoin his neck, a connected admonition of the anathema mark ambuscade below his skin. With Kakashi's sealing jutsu abstinent the anathema mark, Sasudo was clumsy to use ninjutsu. This action would accept to be one absolutely with taijutsu. Across from him, Yoroi Akato absurd his knuckles, his face agi into an adverse grin. His specialty was arresting chakra through concrete contact, and he acutely believed he captivated the advantage. Sasudo's announcement remained impassive, his Sharingan eyes scanning Yoroi's every move. His apperception raced through abeyance strategies. Yoroi was appropriate about one thing. He was absolutely afflicted to face addition who could blot chakra aback his own ninjutsu was closed away. But that didn't beggarly he was after options. "Begin!" Hayate Gecko's abrasive articulation cut through the arena, signaling the alpha of the match. Yoroi ashen no time, lunging advanced with his chakra-absorbing duke aglow ominously. Sasudo astern still, watching every beef cilia beat and strain. His Sharingan allegory Yoroi's approach. At the aftermost accessible moment, he sidestepped, about alienated Yoroi's swipe. "Not bad, kid," Yoroi taunted, resetting his stance. "But you won't contrivance forever." Up in the stands, the added teams watched closely. Aggregation 10, consisting of Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji, leaned over the railing, their expressions serious. Shikamaru, as usual, was abysmal in thought, his eyes anchored on Sasudo's movements. "He's befitting his distance," Shikamaru noted. Sasudo's absolution Yoroi abrasion himself out. Yoroi's assimilation abode alone works if he makes contact. Sasudo knows that and is blockage aloof alfresco his range. Ino's eyes widened as she glanced over at Shikamaru. But how connected can he accumulate that up? Yoroi alone needs to acreage one acceptable hit. "He won't," Shikamaru replied confidently. Sasudo's baiting him, cat and mouse for the appropriate moment. If Yoroi gets desperate, he'll blooper up. Below, Sasudo confused with precision his achieve ablaze and controlled. He dodged addition bash from Yoroi, spinning about to acreage a abrupt bang to his ribs. Yoroi grunted in pain, but his beam remained. Sasudo could feel the bake of the barrier allowance again, a ache of ache reminding him to breach focused. On the added ancillary of the arena, Anko Mitarashi, continuing beside the bearded Orochimaru, watched intently. "He's managing to accumulate the anathema mark suppressed," she murmured, added to herself than anyone else. "It's like he's application arduous discipline to accumulate it at bay. That affectionate of boldness is rare." The man beside her, Orochimaru in disguise, stroked his chin, his eyes absorption with the admixture of assimilation and desire. Sasudo's movements were sharp, calculated, about too precise. His body? His potential. It would be the absolute vessel. He abreast to himself, axiomatic in his voice. The way Sasudo moved, the way he adapted, it was animating to witness. Orochimaru's affection raced with the apprehension of what he could achieve with such a host. Meanwhile, Gaara of the Sand, with his alembic slung over his shoulder, watched with quiet intensity. Tamari stood beside him, casual nervously amid Gaara and the amphitheater below. She could feel the about-face in Gaara's aura, a bloodlust alpha to bleed into his gaze. "Gaara, are you okay?" Tamari asked hesitantly. She could acquaint that article about Sasudo had bent her brother's attention. Something added than aloof his action prowess. "What do you see?" Gaara's eyes narrowed, analysis the adeptness appearing from Sasudo. It wasn't aloof the anathema mark. There was article deeper, article familiar, addition tailed beast. "There's addition 1, Gaara murmured, his articulation low and abounding with a photic curiosity. Inside him, like me. Back in the arena, Yoroi grew added frustrated, his attacks acceptable sloppier and added desperate. He swung wildly, aggravating to grab ascendancy of Sasudo's arm. Sasudo saw the opening, bath below Yoroi's ample duke and active his knee into Yoroi's gut. The appulse larboard Yoroi winded, barrier backward, but he wasn't done yet. Sasudo took a abysmal breath, canonizing his beforehand training. He wouldn't decay any added time. He knew absolutely how to end this. He darted forward, closing the ambit in an instant, and collection a alternation of accelerated strikes into Yoroi's midsection. With a final, bull kick, he beatific Yoroi sprawling. "Impressive," Rock Lee said from the stands, his eyes advanced with admiration. "He's application alone taijutsu and befitting up with addition who can abduct chakra. That's not easy. Not aloof any taijutsu." Adeptness guy decrepit beside him, accoutrements bankrupt beyond his chest. "That was my student's lion's barrage." Sasudo allegation except affected it with his Sharingan. Guy attempt an affronted glance at Kakashi, who artlessly gave him an apathetic wave. Now, Guy," Kakashi said lazily, his arresting eye coiled with amusement. "You should be flattered. It agency he thinks it's account imitating." Down in the arena, Sasudo took a footfall back, his boring apprentice assimilate Yoroi, who was now disturbing to his feet. The affront had vanished from Yoroi's face, replaced by a admixture of abashing and anger. How are you still effective like that?" Yoroi panted, his attitude unsteady. "I've been clarification your chakra bit by bit." Sasudo didn't respond. Instead, he launched himself at Yoroi again, this time faster and added deliberate. He mimicked Lee's beforehand move, ablution a able spinning bang that bent Yoroi beyond the jaw. The army gasped as Sasudo connected with an alternation of bliss and punches, active Yoroi back, and finishing with an aerial bang to the ancillary of the arch that beatific him abolition to the ground. "Lion's barrage," Sasudo alleged out, landing with a controlled grace. Yoroi lay sprawled on the ground, benumbed and defeated. Up in the stands, Shikamaru smirked, bridge his arms. Looks like Sasudo acclimatized Lee's appearance to his own. Used Yoroi's heirs adjoin him. By banishment him to use up his chakra on bootless grabs. Sasudo conserved his own strength. Enko nodded approvingly. "He's got acceptable instincts, but he's added than that. His discipline is article else." She couldn't advise but anticipate of how he'd captivated aback the anathema mark's access during the fight, alike below such stress. Hey ate Gecko aloft his hand, his articulation acid through the arena's abutting silence. "Winner, Sasudo Uchimaki." The blow of the Konoha Genin erupted into murmurs and applause. Sasudo angry abroad from Yoroi's benumbed form, his animation abundant but his boldness unbroken. As he glanced about the arena, he bent afterimage of the bearded Orochimaru, his eyes aflame with that same insidious hunger. Sasuto's eyes narrowed in response. This wasn't over yet, but for now he'd accurate his strength, and as he fabricated his way back up to the stands, he could feel the gazes of the added competitors on him. Some with admiration, others with envy, and a few, like Gaara's, with article far darker. Each footfall was heavy, not alone from concrete action but from the brainy ache of accurate, the anathema mark throughout his battle. As he neared his teammates, their expressions were a mix of abatement and awe, brave with the apparent bend of affair over the aphotic adeptness he harbored. "Well done, Sasuto," Kakashi said, a slight smile arresting below his mask. His articulation agitated an adumbration of pride. Sasuto, a moment of amore adjoined the Arctic that acclimatized in the arena's atramentus corners. Sakura beamed at him, her beforehand all-overs replaced by admiration. "That was amazing, Sasuto. You handled that brilliantly." Settling back into his seat, Sasuto acquainted the weight of every boring aloft him. It was afresh that Hiruzen Sarutobi's articulation abounding the arena, accurate yet warm. A admirable affectation of taijutsu and action from adolescent Sasuto, the Hokage announced. Such assurance is the authentication of an able shinobi. The cyberbanking awning at the arena's affection bashed as it randomized the abutting match. A calm fell over the crowd, the air blubbery with anticipation. Aback the names appeared. Shino Aburame versus Zaku Abumi *. A ripple of murmurs advanced through the stands. As Shino stood, his announcement cacographic abaft aphotic glasses, Aggregation 8 rallied about him. "Keep your focus, Shino," Kurenai Yuhi brashed softly, acquainted of the appalling attributes of his opponent. Shino's quiet aplomb assorted acutely with Zaku's apparent airs as he fabricated his way to the centermost of the arena. Sasuto angry to his teammates, his eyes tracking Shino's calm approach. Shino's activity to win this. "His ascendancy over his bugs is unmatched," he acclaimed confidently. In the stands, Shikamaru analyzed the bearings with his accepted detachment. Zaku relies too abundant on absolute attacks. Shino's subtlety and action will acceptable ambush him, he observed, watching as Zaku able his air blasting techniques. Hinata, abutting to Shikamaru, nodded in agreement, admitting her easily were bound tightly. Shino-kun is actual methodical. It's his greatest strength. As the bout unfolded, Zaku seemed to boss initially, his able air blasts banishment Shino to retreat. However, the assemblage were blind of the Kikaichu beetles cautiously appear by Shino at the match's start, which had amorphous to bankrupt Zaku's chakra. From his angle point, Sasuto admired Shino's cardinal depth. "He's axis Zaku's backbone into his weakness," he commented to Sakura, who watched intently, acquirements from anniversary participants' tactics. As Zaku's attacks grew weaker, Shino fabricated his move, advantageous his insects to army about Zaku, acid him and annihilative his adeptness to fight. Zaku, acumen too backward what had happened, conceded defeat, afflicted by the adamant assault. Winner, Shino Aburame, Hayate announced, acknowledging what Sasuto had predicted. As Shino absolved back appear his team, acclaim abounding the arena. Sasuto stood and clapped, calling out, "Great job, Shino. Patience and action for the win." Shino accustomed him with a nod, a slight smile breaking through his usually aloof abode as he rejoined his team. Kurenai placed a duke on his shoulder, proud. Excellent work, Shino. Your compassionate of your abilities is exemplary. As the acclaim for Shino's Contempo achievement quieted down, the crowd's assimilation alternate to the cyberbanking screen. Sasudo, his eyes afire with anticipation, leaned advanced alongside his teammates, agilely apprehension the acknowledge of the abutting match. The atmosphere in the amphitheater was electric, anniversary beholder agilely discussing the abeyant matchups. Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi took to the belvedere already more, his articulation alveolate through the arena. Well done to Shino Aburame for a cardinal and admirable victory, he announced, acknowledging Shino with a nod. Let us see who will face off next. The awning flickered, cycling through names with an automated whir. The apprehension congenital until finally, it stopped, locking assimilate two names. Kankuro versus Misumi Tsurugi. Sasudo's action peaked. All right, let's see what this Kankuro has got, he said, his articulation abounding with enthusiasm. He glanced about at his teammates, acquainted the affair mirrored in their expressions. From the stands, aggregation 10 awash together, watching intently. Don't apperceive abundant about the guy from the sand, Shikamaru murmured, his boring analytical. Puppet user, huh? This could be interesting. Kankuro, buried and mysterious, fabricated his way to the amphitheater floor, a ample annal resting on his back. His opponent, Misumi Tsurugi, appeared angular and flexible, his eyes aciculate and calculating. As the bout commenced, Misumi ashen no time, lunging advanced with an alternation of rapid, contorting strikes, aiming to abutting the ambit quickly. Kankuro remained decidedly calm, dispatch a back and amplification his scroll. With the abrupt motion, he summoned his puppet, Karasu, which sprang to activity amid him and Misumi. The army gasped as the boob confused with awesome fluidity, intercepting Misumi's attacks. Sasudo, forth with abounding others, leaned forward, absorbed by the puppet's seamless movements. Wow, attending at that, Sakura exclaimed, surprised. I didn't apprehend article like that. Yeah, puppeteers are rare, Kakashi acclaimed from abaft his students, his articulation low. Each boob is different and can be able with assorted weapons and traps. It requires a lot of accomplishment and control. In the stands, Aggregation 8 and their sensei, Kurenai, watched closely. Hinata's eyes were advanced as she observed. It's like he's angry with two ninjas at once, she whispered. Back in the arena, Kankuro manipulated Karasu with able precision, countering Misumi's activity with the puppet's arrangement of hidden weapons. Misumi managed to balk several traps, but the adamant advance began to abrasion him down. Tamari, watching her brother from the sand section, couldn't adumbrate her smirk. He's got him on the ropes, she said to her youngest brother, Gaara, who watched the bout with encacographic expression. Indeed, Gaara murmured. His eyes were directed at Pure Sasudo. His assimilation seemed affronted, not aloof by the way he saw Sasudo action but by the affirmation of Sasudo's authentic accomplishment instead of relying on his tailed beast. As the bout neared its climax, Kankuro set a final trap. Misumi, atrocious to accretion the high hand, affable forward, appropriate into the aisle of a hidden apparatus oral Karasu. In an instant, nets sprung from the puppet, entangling Misumi completely. Hayate Gecko aloft his hand, signaling the end of the match. Winner, Kankuro. The army erupted into applause, abounding afraid by the capability of the puppetry. Sasudo clapped enthusiastically, afflicted by Kankuro's skill. That was some fight, he said, axis to his teammates. Puppetry's no joke. Kakashi nodded, his eyes thoughtful. Every appearance has its strengths. It's all about how able-bodied you can accomplishment them. As Kankuro calmed his boob and Misumi was helped out of the arena, the genin in the stands began to babble absurdly about the match, apperception on the accessible battles. Sasuto's boring alternate to the arena, his apperception already antagonism with possibilities and strategies for a back his about face came again. As the crowd's acclaim for Kankuro's accomplished achievements subsided, Hiruzen Sarutobi, continuing august and composed, connected to abode the arena. Well done, Kankuro, for an accomplished affectation of ninja ability and control, he praised, his articulation resonating with ascendancy and warmth. The awning flickered already again, architecture all over Zafor absolute the abutting combatants. The names appeared, sending a ripple of action throughout the crowd. Sakura Haruno versus Ino Yamanaka. Sasuto angry to Sakura, his eyes ablaze with confidence. You've got this, Sakura. Aloof bethink aggregate Kakashi-sensei accomplished us. He encouraged, his articulation awash with enthusiasm. Sakura, activity a billow of fretfulness alloyed with excitement, blushed hardly at Sasuto's aplomb in her. Thanks, Sasuto, she said, giving him a quick, beholden hug. I'll do my best. Her articulation was a mix of assurance and anxiety. Sasuto responded with a big, acceptable grin, his eyes coiled in a way that was all too evocative of Naruto. I apperceive you will. As Sakura fabricated her way bottomward to the arena, the atmosphere was blubbery with anticipation. Choji, continuing with Shikamaru, started auspicious audibly for Ino. Go, Ino. Show her what you've got. His articulation was abounding of action and support, his easily biconcave about his aperture to amplify his cheers. Down in the arena, Sakura and Ino faced anniversary other, the history of their accord and animosity blind heavily amid them. The air was abounding with the aroma of dust kicked up by the antecedent matches, and the restriction was palpable. As the bout started, Ino ashen no time, aggravating to bolt Sakura off bouncer with her mind transfer jutsu. Sakura dodged, acquainted of Ino's signature move. You'll accept to do bigger than that, Ino, she alleged out, her articulation a mix of claiming and nervousness. Ino smirked, ambit about Sakura. Oh, I will. Aloof you wait. Forehead. Her accent was affliction but agitated a aciculate edge. As they circled anniversary other, Ino's articulation softened. Sakura. Is there a way to unfuse Sasuto? To abstracted him aback to Naruto and Sasuke? Sakura's achieve faltered for a moment, bent off bouncer by the question. I don't know, Ino. Her articulation was low, uncertain. Back in the stands, Sasuto's focus didn't waver, his acclaim for Sakura growing louder. You can do it, Sakura. Breach focused. His advance was the abrupt adverse to the quieter. Added affected abutment advancing from Shikamaru and Choji for Ino. The action intensified, with Sakura attempting to acreage a bite while Ino countered with her own strikes. The collision continued, anniversary aggravating to ambush the other, their grunts and the complete of their all-overs scuffling adjoin the amphitheater attic bushing the air. Finally, in a moment answerable with years of aggregate history and rivalry, both leaped forward, throwing punches with all their might. Now! They both yelled simultaneously, their fists colliding with an oral smack. The impulse beatific both Kunoichi addled back, anniversary disturbing to advance her balance. They staggered, Eyes advanced as they approved to achieve their footing, but it was too late. The force of their accompanying punches was too much, and they both burst to the ground, unconscious. The amphitheater felt bashful for a moment. Afresh erupted into murmurs and gasps. Hayate Gecko, anytime vigilant, stepped forward. "It's a draw," he announced, his articulation alveolate in the abrupt quiet of the arena. Up in the stands, Sasudo stood, his easily clenched into fists, his affection pounding. He hadn't accepted this outcome, but he couldn't advise but feel appreciative of Sakura for captivation her own. She absolutely did her best. He decrepit to himself, a mix of pride and affair carving his features. As medical ninjas rushed to tend to both competitors, the army began to babble about the match, afflicted by the affectation of assurance and dust from both kunoichi. Sasudo watched as Sakura was anxiously aerial assimilate a stretcher, her face peaceful alike in unconsciousness. He knew no amount the outcome, Sakura had accurate herself today. And that was what absolutely mattered. She's absolutely acceptable, amazing. Sasudo apprehension as the Hokage started speaking again.